Okay. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ryan, for that great soundtrack. Apparently, I need to be watching more Lego movies. Well, welcome, everyone, to this month's Vault Hours session. My name is Casey Babcock, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Bitwarden. Also on the call is Ryan Louisbrand. He's the senior product marketing manager, and we're just really excited to have you here. We're going to kick it off today with a little bit on multi-factor authentication from our special guest, Taime Gomers, and then we're going to jump into some of the updates from the September release. And before we get into that, I do want to remind you that you're always free to have a live question or comment on screen. Just note that in the chat and we'll get you on screen there. Let's see, is there any initial questions that came through that we can answer? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we'll just barrel on forward. Cool, and with that, I'll hand it off to Taime on multi-factor authentication.
Thank you so much. I'll quickly share my screen. So yeah, I guess everyone can see my screen right now. I would love to talk about MFA and especially a common misconception in MFA. But before we get into that, let's just quickly introduce myself. My name is Tijmen Gommers, and that's actually quite a difficult name to pronounce for most people. It's a Dutch name, and I'm from the Netherlands. But the advantage of having such a unique name is that you can use it as a handle on your social media. So if you want to find me on social media, go to Twitter or GitHub or LinkedIn and just search for my first name and you'll find me. And I think my GitHub profile is probably the most important one because that's where I publish my open source software, which you might know. So I develop Rival OTP in my free time, which is a multi-factor authentication app for the Apple ecosystem. But you can also find some other software on there, like Kernel Me, which is more related to my profession. Kernel Me is actually a kernel exploitation framework, which I use at Northwave Security, where I work. I work there as a product lead adversary simulation. And what I do in my daily job at Northwave is basically simulating certain threat actors to hack organizations and measure their cyber resilience and increase their cyber resilience. So I basically propose some attack scenarios to an organization to hack them and then measure their cyber resilience. And whenever I propose a way of hacking an organization that relates to authentication, I often hear Chief Information Security officers tell me this, which is the common misconception about MFA. Our corporate accounts can't be hacked because we use strong passwords and MFA. And I want to get rid of this misconception during this presentation, which takes about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's quite quick. And before we get into it, let me quickly explain which types of authentication we actually have. And this is, I use the source Microsoft.com for this. So this is all Microsoft, all credits to Microsoft. They categorized it into 4 categories. Bad authentication, which is actually a single factor authentication, like just using a password, for example. Then they categorize good authentication, which is actually using a password and something else, like a text message, a 6-digit code that you get via text message. So whenever you authenticate to a certain website, you need to enter that 6-digit code after you authenticate it, and only then you will be successfully authenticated. Now, what Microsoft thinks is better is using apps such as Rival OTP or maybe even Bitwarden to store your OTP tokens in. And this works similar to text message, only the communication channel is different. So instead of receiving that token via text message, you receive the token in your app. You need to open your app and enter the 6-digit code into the application you're authenticating to. And similar to that, they defined that MFA via push notifications is also good. So this is actually the Authenticator app that Microsoft publishes themselves. So you sign into your Microsoft account, and then you get a push notification on your phone stating, do you want to deny or approve this authentication attempt? And you click approve and you get signed in. Now, Microsoft states that the best way to authenticate is actually not using multi-factor authentication, but just passwordless authentication. So, for example, having a certificate on your computer to authenticate to certain applications, or maybe even a physical key that you need to put into your laptop and put your finger on to scan it, and then you can authenticate to a certain application, or maybe even biometrics. So think about Face ID, for example. So knowing about all those methods of authenticating, let's get back to that common misconception. Our corporate accounts can't be hacked. We use strong passwords and MFA. Let's go through all of that, all of those authentication methods and prove them wrong. Starting with the most simple one, single factor authentication, which is just a password. What we do at Northwave is we just browse through certain data breaches to find the password of the user that we want to hack. And there has probably been a data breach at a certain website that that user was registered to. And we can just see the password of that user because it was breached. And we can use it to sign in. So, of course, quite obviously, using a single factor authentication method, just a password, is a bad way of authenticating. It's not really secure. So let's take a look at multi-factor authentication then. So maybe multi-factor authentication using a password and a OTP token via text message. How would you be able to breach an account using that authentication method? Well, it's actually quite easy, because how this works is that a seed for the token is actually stored in the database of the application you're trying to authenticate to, similar to the password that is also stored in that database. So if there is a data breach of a website that you have multi-factor authentication enabled for, it could occur that your OTP seed is also leaked if that application is hacked. So then in the data breach, we could find the password hash that you used, but also the OTP seed. So we can recalculate what the OTP 6 digits are, and we can enter them and we can sign into the application. But this actually only counts for the application that was breached. So you can't reuse the password on other applications. So we do something different for that. We can bypass it, for example, via a phishing campaign. So we send a phishing mail to a company or to an organization or to a user that we want to hack. For example, using a phishing page like this one. So we see a Microsoft login page here. The URL is login.@microsoft.com, which is actually not managed by Microsoft, because the legitimate domain would be login.onmicrosoft.com. So this is actually managed by me, the hacker, and I just ask the victim to enter his or her password and the multi-factor authentication token, which is valid for around 30 seconds. So what I do, I just re-enter when someone falls victim for this phishing attempt. I re-enter the credentials within 30 seconds on the legitimate login page, and I bypassed MFA again. So MFA using text messages is not really that good either, or at least it adds value, but it can be bypassed. So it's not the holy grail. And actually, this also counts for apps like Riva OTP, because they work in a similar fashion. You just have that 6-digit code that can be phished if you enter it on the wrong page, on a malicious phishing page. So according to Microsoft, a better way of authenticating is using their push notifications in the Microsoft Authenticator app. But I do not agree with that, because I think they can be phished or bypassed in the same way. So whenever you have a password of a user, most of the times you can sign into an account, even if it has this MFA method enabled. So we could use the data breach again, so we could use the phishing campaign again, or we use other techniques such as password spraying, which is something we often do to obtain the password of a user. To give an example, password spraying is the reverse of brute forcing a password. So instead of trying many passwords on an account, we try a very simple common password on many accounts within an organization. For example, January 2022, exclamation mark, as we can see right here. In the hope that someone uses that password within the organization. And there's always someone with a weak password. So whenever we sign into that account, or an account that we got via the data breach or via a phishing campaign, those people get this approved sign-in pop-up on their Microsoft Authenticator app. But the problem is that users don't really know what this pop-up means. So what happens is that they get that push notification and they think to themselves, well, I'm working, right? Yeah, I'm working. I don't want to be signed out. Approve. And they tap approve. And instead of approving their own sign-in, they unknowingly approve my malicious sign-in. But I can imagine that most of the people watching right now are probably tech savvy, so they wouldn't fall for this method. So we use different methods for tech savvy people to bypass this authentication method. For example, a quite recent technique, which is also a phishing technique, in which you, for example, ask victims to participate in a survey or something else, something they need to navigate to a website for. For example, this phishing website, surveyonline.com. It looks quite legitimate. You can sign in with your Apple account or your Google account or your Microsoft account. And we tap one. For example, we tap continue with Microsoft. And you get this pop-up. And this actually seems like a very legitimate pop-up because we can see that the URL right here is login.microsoftonline.com, which is a legitimate Microsoft URL. We can see it uses an encrypted communication channel, HTTPS, TLS, and it has the log next to it. So this is actually, you can barely recognize that this is phishing. But what is actually happening here is that this window that we see right here, the sign-in window, is not really a separate window. This is actually an element in the parent window, in the browser window. And we call this technique browser in the browser proxy phishing. So let me elaborate on it a little bit more. We can see that this top frame is actually a fake element made to look like it was a separate window. And the bottom is actually a frame that loads the legitimate web page, the legitimate Microsoft sign-in, but through a proxy that is managed by me, the hacker. So whenever someone signs in here, they will actually get that approved sign-in pop-up. They most likely approve it because they initiated the sign-in themselves. And then via the proxy, I can read their authenticated session, copy it to my browser, and I'm signed in, and I bypassed the MFA method of Microsoft. So we can actually conclude that the push notifications MFA can also be bypassed. So that's not really the holy grail either. And that actually leaves us with passwordless authentication. So a certificate on your laptop or the biometrics or the FIDO key. So when I tell this to the Chief Information Security Officer of the organization that I need to hack, they ask me, okay, so if we go passwordless, our corporate accounts can't be abused? Question mark. Well, let's put that to the test. You see me hacking on the right, and I have a scenario. So there's a victim that is using passwordless authentication, and that victim is authenticated to Outlook. He or she is reading her or his mail. What can I do to bypass passwordless authentication? Well, as a hacker, I can actually use something called malware phishing, So I send a piece of malware via mail to the victim in the hopes that the victim will open that piece of malware. Whenever that happens, the only thing that I do using the malware is I steal the sessions in the browser of the victim. So all the authenticated sessions, which includes the authenticated session to Outlook, I steal it and copy it to my own browser. And then I try to authenticate to Outlook using that session. Now, this might or might not work depending on the configuration of the MFA, the passwordless authentication method implemented and in use, and the configuration at the application side, so at Outlook's side. Sometimes it works for some applications, sometimes it doesn't work. So, what can we learn from that? Well, to conclude, passwordless authentication is not the holy grail, but it's currently the best authentication that we have. And that's what I want to conclude with. If you have any questions about it, you can ask them in the chat probably. And otherwise, you can always ask them via my social media. So thank you very much.
Casey, you're muted.
Casey, you're muted.
I am muted. There we go. Great. So I was saying, thank you so much for providing a little bit more insight there. Absolutely information that we don't typically think about. So
You're welcome.
yeah, really
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
Cool. And with that, I'm sure we're going to get some more questions in the chat as well. But while people are kind of mulling that over, I'm going to hand it off to Ryan to talk about our September release.
Absolutely. Happy to talk about it. Firstly, is my audio coming through clearly? Getting thumbs up? Great. Wonderful. Thanks for that presentation. As I posted in chat, nothing makes you more paranoid than hearing about what hackers do and working for an internet security company. It's kind of scary, but we at Bitwarden try to do our best to make things safer for everyone. So with that, actually, we had a couple of updates come through with the September release. On the next screen, we'll see just a selection of some of the updates that have come through. Casey, I'm not seeing that screen yet. Is it? There it goes. All right. So I have everything here all on one page. So it's we had quite a bit of things come through for the September update, even more planned for the rest of the year. So stay tuned for some really exciting features. But the big one for this one here was fastmail email alias integration, which we now can use the username generator to create fastmail email aliases through their API. We already have a couple other providers in our application. We're happy to add Fastmail to the list. If you are an admin and you are exporting Vault items, we will now start logging those events, that event in our event logs. So just you can keep track of even better of who's exported what and who's got what. Also, in the same vein of making things better for corporations, organizations, anyone who's using a managed device, such as if your company hands you a company laptop with all your software pre-installed, we've set up some support for the browser extension to allow you to pre-configure the URLs for your self-hosted instance, so you don't have to have a new employee copy and paste a bunch of new things in which they're still trying to get situated. So it definitely helps with onboarding. On the note of multi-factor authentication, we had a UI update to the mobile app. We added a TOTP screen, TOTP screen, where you can get your one-time passcodes if you're using any of the premium features with the Bitwarden Authenticator. So it just makes it easier to access all those items. And finally, if you were using an API, or rather if you were doing some automation on your internal network, also, this is more of an organization thing, but you can now use, a few months ago, we released a RESTful API that gets spun up on a local web server. There's just a small security update for that, just to make that even more secure. All right, so before I move on to the blog, have there been any questions about what happened in the September release? I see there's a question about passkeys. If we wanted to jump back a subject, because I know we like talking about password lists and stuff.
Yeah, I think that sounds great, just so it's top of mind. Yeah, so Taime, Vivian asked if you had any thoughts on the future of passkeys.
Do you mean the Apple passkeys or the physical keys?
What I guess what FIDO2 Alliance is defining as passkeys, which would be from the consortium that's made up of Google and
Yeah,
Apple.
I actually haven't looked into it too much myself, actually. So I'm not sure if I have an opinion on it yet. I need to test it to see if it really works. Um, I do think we need to, if it's similar to the current biometric authentication, or for example, using physical keys such as FIDO keys, I do think we need to look for an even more user-friendly way of authenticating to really get everyone engaged in it. But to see if it's secure, I would really need to test it.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great. Well then, Ryan, do you want to hop on over to the blog? I don't see any other questions that came through.
Sure thing. So we posted a lot of blogs this month. Here we go. Quite a few going through. You can find them all at bitwarden.com/blog. Just to see all the stuff that we talk about, just keeping track of stuff that's happening in the industry. One of the things that we're doing, it's a project we've taken on, is really kind of ranking password security requirements from different vendors. We've done banks before. Now we have a series on e-commerce in which we analyze the password requirements for, say, Amazon and several others to see like what their policies were. For example, like how long do they allow a password to be? When you change a password, do you immediately have to log back on? You can go ahead and check out all of those rankings there. And similarly, on the next slide, we talk about streaming services. We've done the same thing too for the streaming services that are most popular, including Netflix. So you can also see where our thoughts are on with where all these services are on their password requirements and what they encourage users to do. The next one is our blog talking about our fast mail integration release. Pretty happy to have them on board, working with them to get this. I know a lot of users have been using Fastmail for email aliases for a while, and so it just makes a lot of sense to have that easily accessible within Bitwarden. Up next is we had a Q&A with our Bitwarden founder and CTO, Kyle. Kyle's awesome. This was a interview that was part of the Smashing Security podcast that aired a couple weeks back. I'd recommend going and listening to it if you want to hear it, because it's some really great content. Additionally, like it's in this blog, it's just a transcription of the Q&A. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how Bitwarden got started and a couple other fun things about our philosophy and where we're going, you can go ahead and read up on that. And then for those of you who like working in command line and do a lot of, crazy hacker-like typing, right, and Linux kernels and all those fun things that a lot of advanced users use, Bitwarden does have a command line interface client, and this is just a how-to guide written by a third party who's awesome. Jack Wallen, you guys might know him. He wrote a how-to guide of how to install and use the CLI. There's a lot of code blocks in it, so not for the faint of heart. And then finally, we have this blog detailing the recent investment that Bitwarden is making into improving our product for all of our customers. So there's a lot of great statements in here from our CEO detailing what's in store for us, Bitwarden, and our future. I highly recommend checking this blog out. All right. So the news feed, talk about some news articles that came through. Just some accolades, pat ourselves on the back a little bit. Best free password managers, PC World gave us that. We're on their list. So that's exciting. That happened this month. On the next one, we also have another best password manager coming from Trusted Reviews. So again, always happy to see those. The next one, I'm actually quite happy about. In prior roles, I've worked with laptop, and they take their stuff pretty seriously. So really happy to have gotten on their list, Laptop Mag's best password managers of 2022. So that's a big exciting one for me. Also, next up is something that's also interesting to me. I am a film major, so I was, following these guys for a while. Screen Rant, they also did a review of 10 free apps of no Android users should live without, and Bitwarden was number one. So happy to see so many of my passions come together. So thank you, Screen Rant, for that ranking. And then someone who might have a little bit more Android clout is the Android Police, also ranking Bitwarden as number one for the best productivity apps on Android in 2022. So lots of fun accolades coming in. Makes me feel good about myself and what I'm doing, and keeping everyone else on the internet secure, and just basically what we're doing in the community. So that's all that I've got for the news. Up next is Vivian to talk about our learning.
Yeah, hey everyone. So I'm Vivian Schick, Senior Director of Marketing here at Bitwarden, and Don, our Technical Evangelist and Community Manager, he is taking a well-deserved day off, so I'll be covering a few of his training and learning and community updates. So to start, the Bitwarden Learning Center, for those of you who may not be familiar with this, is the place to go for anyone who wants to just be more proficient with password management. And so we have modules really for everyone, from novice users to power users to admins. So some of the courses that are listed on the left-hand side here are just a few examples of what the Learning Center provides. Next up on social and community. So yeah, you guys are all so generous when it comes to sharing your knowledge and expertise. And here we have a few entries from this past month, all of them, I think, from David H. So thank you, David H., for writing all of this. So take a look at these great resources. And then, yeah, getting involved. So if you are interested in getting more involved in the Bitwarden community, please check out this bitwarden.com /get involved. And this is where you can find opportunities and learn a little bit more on how to create feature requests, submit community questions, join the beta program, contribute to the Bitwarden codebase, and more. And then we have some really great open roles across engineering, sales, and marketing. We were recently listed as a great place to work. And so we are a great place to work. So hope you'll check out some of these openings and join us. And here's a list of some upcoming events. On October 6th, we have Bitwarden Brilliance, where our trainers will walk through SCIM provisioning. As you know, every Wednesday, we still have our live weekly demos. And then on October 20th, we have a demo for managed service providers. Next slide. Last but not least, some special recognition to a few community members and their recent contributions. And again, thank you so much. You guys are just all so generous with your time here. So quick thank you to, I'm going to pronounce full names here, and please forgive me if I've mispronounced yours. So thank you to Vitaly, Mathis, Patrick, and Diavit and Tomi. So thank you all. And I think that concludes these updates.
Yeah, exactly. And so before I jump on into this one more thing, we got a question. So Ryan, someone asked if we have any other providers on top of Fastmail that that support our email aliasing integration?
Yeah, so we have 3 additional ones at the moment, and we're always looking to add some more. But that is Anon Addy, Simple Login, and Firefox
Great.
Relay,
Yeah, that
I believe,
sounds right.
off the
Cool.
top of my
Thank
head.
you. Beautiful. And then that one more thing. Um, if you've joined any of our Vault Hour sessions in the past, you know that we typically do a Bitwarden store giveaway at the end. So if you enter into this giveaway and win, you can win some of our cool swag on our website. I typically use the Bitwarden insulated tumbler. I use that pretty frequently, so definitely recommend checking that out if you win. So to enter, you just visit bitwarden.com/shop and you fill out the contact form that you find there. In the comments section, just say that you heard about the giveaway during Vault Hours 28. And you must submit this form within 24 hours of now to be considered. And you'll be notified via email if you've won. One thing to keep in mind is that if you've won in the past, please refrain from submitting to the giveaway again. We just want to keep making sure new people win. And with that, we can jump on over to some questions that we might have gotten in the chat. Are there going to be any internships?
Reese asked
Vivian.
about internships. Yeah. I know that we had a summer internship program. So, and those can vary across the different functions at Bitwarden depending on what the needs and requirements are. So, Reese, do you have what is your area that you're looking for in terms of internship? But I would encourage you to submit your resume. We have, I think on the careers page, there is a general inquiry submission where even if there isn't a specific job posting listed, but you just want to shoot your resume over and for us to keep it on file, then please do that. And I know our people ops team are always looking for great folks, even if there's not a specific job listed. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it looks like Danny beat me to the punch in terms of the link. But yeah, that's a great place to enter any general interest inquiries in terms of positions at Bitwarden. Beautiful. Great. Are there any other questions coming through?
You guys are going easy on us. Normally we get some pretty hard ones.
Yeah.
We're ready. Come on, bring them.
Maybe I have one question. Ryan, some of the blogs that you highlighted earlier in terms of what streaming services, how they were ranked in terms of password security. Do you remember exactly which one was ranked the highest? Because I'd be curious out of the top 5, which one is more secure?
Well, I'm going to cheat and look it up because I've got it here. Let's see. Interestingly, Netflix is ranked as one of the least there, considering how everybody is, sharing passwords with everybody else, and they must be pretty lax with it. Yeah, they have password limits on there. They don't have two-factor authentication or authenticator apps, and you don't even, if you reset the password, you don't even need to log in using that new password. So that was interesting. It looks like, looking at our ranking, there's a tie between HBO Max and Amazon Prime Video. Amazon, most interestingly, limits their password length to 16 characters only. As a big detriment. 16 now is a good number to make sure your password is strong, but with our password generator, it's really easy to get up to 25 to 50 to even more than that. So really surprising to see that from a corporation as large as Amazon. Also, authenticator apps on Amazon Prime Video, not really a big thing, but I know they do have it for your specific Amazon account. and also no authenticator hardware.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. We got another question coming in from Josh. Is there going to be an API that can only be used to pull log data in the future?
So you're able to do that already, but you need to use two separate APIs to do so. And I'm not the best person to ask about it. I just know some of it. But if you need to do what's it called, SEAM, SEIM integration, you're able to access all the data through the Bitwarden RESTful API and the primary Bitwarden API. One of which needs to operate on a client in your network so that it has access to the decrypted data in the vault. But between the two of them, you should be able to put together all the information that you would need to have some pretty robust um, security logging. So the second API that I mentioned is the one that runs off of the command line interface. You just have to use the serve command on it. It'll spin up a local web server right there that you could then try to ping with, also using the REST API.
Yeah, so it's a good thing to note there that you need both APIs there to make that data usable for pulling that log data, but it's absolutely possible.
I think
Any
Reese also
news?
had a question in the chat window that came across a little earlier. Is there going to be an overlay pop-up interface in the near future?
So I can talk about this one. It's a very divisive topic. The biggest problem that we have with the overlay is that in order to get the overlay to work on the page, it has to inject code into the page as the page is loading. There's been some issues recently. We saw on Twitter that something on LastPass was breaking it. So like it was trying to insert their overlay, and all it did was it pushed the header to the footer, and then I don't know, it can be interesting, but we find that applications that do that, where they inject themselves into the web page, a lot of people don't like that. It's not the most secure, and so we need to figure out the best way that we can do it without having to go about that route. So unfortunately it's not an easy answer. I see two more questions in Q&A. Any news on the secrets manager you can tease us with? Um, we're going to call it the secrets manager. Just so you know, that's the tease. Vivian, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah, it's in development. We are currently in beta, so you can go to bitwarden.com/secrets beta if you'd like to participate when the beta is released. So I stand corrected. It's not in beta yet, but you can sign up, use that link. I will put it here in the chat here.
And Vivian, Reese is asking, what's a secrets manager? Oh, Ryan's already on top of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, the idea is that when people are developing stuff, for example, in Git or something like that, um, they when you need to call a specific API, sometimes people will hard code APIs into prototypes, and then that prototype doesn't get deleted, so the API key in the code still exists out on the internet, and then somebody can find it and access it. It's usually a big thing for programmers and developers. So.
Yeah, this product is more targeted to developers, DevOps teams, and cybersecurity teams. And as Ryan said, it's really for them to be able to store and manage and just deploy secrets at scale. So there's developer and infrastructure secrets. So anything as like APIs, configuration files, etc.
Exactly. Looks like Jim called you out specifically, Ryan, for this next question. What are your thoughts on previous requests to enhance emergency access to allow multiple timeframes and select specific items to share with multiple people?
I think that's a cool idea. I'm not gonna lie, I like that idea. My brother is my emergency person, my emergency contact, and there's some passwords that I know that he would need if I was in an emergency, and some that he would not need. Um, if I was an emergency. Like he doesn't need to know like my Reddit password. That's a bad idea. Um, but at the moment, I know that it was presented to the team for consideration, and we have to prioritize with some things. And I don't really have a clear answer about like if we're going to try and implement it, but I do like it. It's a cool idea.
And I'm sorry, I typed in. I was trying. This is my problem when I'm trying to talk and type at the same time. The link that I shared was wrong. It's not Secrets Manager, but Secrets Beta. Let me stop talking and type correctly here.
Well, Vivian's typing. Is there any other questions coming through the chat or the questions pane? Yeah, you guys are going easy on us this month. Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Vivian.
Well, I can tell you there's going to be some fun stuff coming next month. And no, I can't tease that. I was going to tease something, but I can't tease that yet. But just keep an eye out for November. Around the holidays, it's going to be some good stuff to talk about. I think you all will like it. I don't have anything else to add. Casey.
I don't have anything else to add either. So with that, I guess we can end the session. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. As always, it's always a pleasure to, connect with some more people from the community and hear about what's up to come. Yeah, we can hang out here for a couple more minutes too if there's any people that are trying to type something frantically into the chat. But for now, everyone else, thank you so much for joining.